Good morning, I'm Pat Kiernan. This is Pat's Papers, our morning look at what's in the nation's newspapers. We've been looking through the headlines, and here's what we found for you today.
You hate to have the sideshow overshadow the main news, but there really wasn't much substance to the main news with the president's visit to Iraq, so the shoe-throwing incident seems to be the main headline out of the surprise trip. A pair of shoes hurled at the podium at a presidential news conference by an Iraqi reporter. The Washington Post headline is "Shoe-Throwing Mars Bush's Baghdad Trip." The Post chose 4 small photos to tell the story. The Philadelphia Inquirer decided to use a single large photo on its front page, the photo showing the shoe in midair. You can pick just about any paper in the country, from the Modesto Bee to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and you will find some version of this story and one or more photos to go along with it. I note that the New York Times emphasized some restraint on the story, putting it below the fold on the front page so it wasn't quite so prominent. The New York Post had the headline "Lame Duck" on its front page, although the New York Daily News may have been more accurate with its use of that phrase, because it was actually, when you look at the videotape, a pretty quick duck. The Daily News headline says, "Bush puts the duck in lame duck." Let's go back to the Washington Post. There was a lot of interest on the front page there. A story that says the expected crowd for the January 20th inauguration of Barack Obama will almost certainly be too much for the city infrastructure to handle well. Guesses have gone as high as 4 million people. Even if it's only 1 million, the city would be overwhelmed. There is a story about limits on executive pay in the Post this morning, these limits that were supposedly included in the $700 billion financial industry bailout. The Post reports those limits are mostly toothless now because they only applied to certain types of bailouts, and the money is not being allocated that way anymore. Like every paper, the Post trying to figure out how best to cope with declining ad revenues. One answer is the price increase noted in the newspaper today. Single copy prices of this newspaper up from 50 cents to 75 cents. A reminder that it's time to get your Christmas parcels in the mail. The New York Daily News recaps the deadlines the Postal Service sets for packages you want delivered before Santa arrives. For regular parcel post, the last day to mail is tomorrow. A controversy has flared up over the weekend after the installment of Saturday Night Live. A skit made fun of legally blind New York State Governor David Paterson. Paterson's actually known for his sense of humor, but he called this skit third-grade humor. He said it does nothing to overcome the stereotypes that lead to extremely high unemployment among blind people. Front page feature in the LA Times today drawing attention to the tough times some doctors are facing. Primary care doctors are struggling. According to the report, much of the problem lies in an endangered business model. These 1 or 2 physician general practices, many are having to close up shop, leaving thousands of patients in limbo. Also from the LA Times, an interesting question. Is California too big and too balkanized to govern? This in response to the ongoing fiscal paralysis and the legislature in partisan gridlock over a budget. The story says the state is arguably more dysfunctional now than it was when Governor Gray Davis was booted out. Pinched by recession, Christmas shoppers may skimp on people, but never on a dog. The front page story in the San Francisco Chronicle says 69% of Americans surveyed would sooner tighten their belts on friends or extended family than tighten the collar on their dog. 65% of those surveyed would rather eat ramen noodles themselves than make their dogs eat on the cheap. In Chicago, plenty of political drama ahead for Governor Rod Blagojevich. The Tribune this morning emphasizing the political chaos in Springfield, where Democrats and Republicans are jostling over the best way to remove the disgraced governor and right the ship. Springfield State Journal-Register carries a front-page report today about the Republican Party's effort to put one of its own people in the vacant Barack Obama Senate seat. That seat, of course, may be what set this whole mess into motion. It is the time of year for these lists to start emerging, the end-of-year list. The San Francisco Chronicle has a report on the top internet searches for 2008. For the 7th time in the past 8 years, Britney Spears was the most searched name on Yahoo. On Google USA, Barack Obama was the most searched name of the year. But on worldwide Google, Sarah Palin rises to the top of the list. For the Wall Street Journal, the lead story there, but the extent of the Bernard Madoff investment losses, it really is stunning. And the names of prominent people affected keep coming out today. The Journal and the New York Times say Daily News publisher Mort Zuckerman is among the investors, as was New Jersey's Senator Frank Lautenberg. In the New York Times this morning on this story, a detailed follow-up, all about the 17th floor. At Bernard Madoff's Manhattan-based investment firm, there was the 18th floor, where business was conducted publicly, and then there was the secret world of the 17th floor. now said to have been the inner sanctum, the place where investigators have moved in now to do their work. The Times says this was the epicenter of what may be the largest Ponzi scheme in history. One more item from the New York Times this morning, today's internet business success story. The website Sit or Squat. This is the guide to clean and convenient public toilets. The owners say it has taken off, particularly since they introduced a mobile application, an iPhone application that uses the GPS chip in the phone to immediately locate the closest comfortable public bathroom. Finally, the USA Today look ahead to the biggest show on television. American Idol's new season launches January 13th. They will introduce wild card picks on American Idol this year, meaning the judges can overrule the telephone voting and put 3 singers into the top 12 themselves.
And that's a look at just some of what's in the newspapers across the country this morning. I'm Pat Kiernan. We do this every weekday. patspapers.com for a complete list of all the newspapers and the links to the individual stories we featured today.